Hello, we're continuing to build this watch today, and this is the front of the watch in 18 karat yellow gold. You missed me cutting out this circle. I cut inside the line and I still need to enlarge that hole very slightly, I think, but I've been checking it with dividers, trying to get it fairly central, and I noticed that a couple of the edges are slightly thicker than the others, but it's quite minimal. And I'm checking that the thing is square. Again, very slightly rectangular at the moment, so it needs the sliver to come off one edge, which is actually the edge which looks very slightly thick to my eye. A lot of handmade work is just about observing, checking, and trying to get everything true. And this is the glass with the little silver wire around it, which I made up before. I'm going to make this wire up in 18 karat white gold. You see, this shows how the round glass is going to fit on the square case. So this is the 18 karat white gold in a 1mm square wire. I guessed how long it needed to be using pi. I know that the glass is 21mm across, so I think I just times that by 3.5 to get myself enough wire that I'll be able to make a circle out of it, which will go around the glass. And these pliers I'm using, square on one edge and half round on the other edge, and they're used for making all manner of things, curved, and then I've edited a bit out there. Once I've got it round, I'm just cutting it. Rather than using snips, I'm using a saw blade, because you get a square edge when you cut through this with a saw blade. Hard to get it started, but once we make a start on that, we can cut through it. And because it's a little bit thin, I don't want to bend it up. I'm using pliers to grip. They're parallel pliers, so they shouldn't dent it. And we just saw through it like so. I've got a few different things still on the way to me. I haven't received the movements yet. I managed to win a dentist drill on eBay for reasonable money. Not sure if it's going to work, but the parts from it can certainly repair this other one. That little bit of white gold wire there, I was thinking I could put markers around the outside of the dial at 12, 3, 6 and 9, but there's not enough there, so maybe I'll do 12 and 6 or just 12. And here I'm just filing the ends of the wire flat, because I want this really to marry up quite well. I'm going to jiggle around with this until these pieces of wire sit very nicely against each other, square, true, so that when I run the soldering there's no sign of whereabouts the join took place. If I just snipped it off with wire cutters, it wouldn't be nice and square. But as you see, I filed it up anyway. And then we're going to solder this shut and tap it round. So now I've got that sitting in my tweezers above my charcoal block, painting on a little bit of flux and picking the solder up with the flux brush. Once the solder's on there, I'm going to start up the torch, and you should see that the torch is hot enough for this kind of thing. Just trying to get a little bit of heat into the whole thing. This is quite an easy solder because 18 karat white gold's got a very high melting point compared to the solder I'm using. For some reason, when you have different alloys of metal, they can have obscure properties. For instance, silver melts at one temperature, gold melts at another. White gold, which has silver and gold, melts at a much higher temperature, and it's a bit counterintuitive really. You wouldn't think that it would be affected that much, but for some reason it is. Right, so I've dipped it in water to cool it off, and the next step is to clean up the join. Often when soldering, it'll go straight into an acidic solution to remove any tarnish or flux from it. It's called pickle. I haven't got a pickle at the moment. I have got safety pickle, the powder, to use, but it needs to be heated up. I'm in the garage, so because I've used some wet and dry paper, emery paper, it's not really necessary anyway. Here I'm just tapping it, trying to get it a little bit larger to fit around the glass. Using a very small hammer. Don't want to put too much damage onto this ring by tapping it. Invariably it will put dents in it, but I figure lots of tiny little taps is going to be less damaging than getting a big hammer. And you need to tap it sideways as well to make sure it stays flat. Just offering it up to the glass to see whether it fits, and we're pretty close. It's going to require a little bit more tapping. It took me a little bit longer than I expected it to, this. The 18 karat is harder than the silver, so it doesn't stretch quite as easily. And there we go, that seems perfect. Glass fits inside that, nice and snug. So that piece of wire is going to end up soldered on the front of the yellow gold, front of the watch, and I'm going to put the little bit of offcut at 12 o'clock just so that there's some reference point as to where the hands are pointing. And now I'm just using a bit of using a buff stick to try and clean it up a bit. All these parts, it'd be good if I polished them before I soldered them together. It's called pre-polishing. Obviously the front of the yellow gold piece is harder to polish once it's got a ring sticking out of it than when it's dead flat and you can just polish it against the flat felt. This dentist drawer that I've got coming, I'll be able to get some felt accoutrements which I can use jeweler's rouge and compound to polish with. Not as good as a jeweler's polishing wheel, but that's obviously a bigger thing, and maybe in time I'll get one, but they're quite messy. The polish goes everywhere. It's kind of an oily substance that you polish with. Got a little ultrasonic though to get rid of the polish. Just giving that a further little buff, and that was today's contribution to this watch. Thank you for watching.